Gun builds are quite interesting in Deadlock because one could argue that they are the great equalizer. Every single character in this game has a gun, and so theoretically every single character can play a gun build. And this is quite different to other build archetypes because, well, for example, you'll never see Mina play a tank build. She has almost no HP, so that just wouldn't really work. You'll never see Venator play a spirit build because he has no spirit scaling on anything except the trap, which is just not good as a damage ability. You'll never see Lash play a support build because why would the Lash care about anybody else other than himself? I mean, come on. And then, well, you'll never see Vindicta play a melee build unless she's being played by a psychotic freak. But despite this, not every character feels good to play as a gun character, and some heroes are just outright horrible at using their gun. Why exactly is this the case? Why can't you just buy 1,000,000 gun items on a character and have every character be a gun powerhouse? Well, today I want to talk about what makes a good gun character versus a bad gun character, and why, even though you can play gun builds on some characters, that doesn't mean that you should. And then I want to address whether it is actually a good thing that the game is this way, or if we should actually make it so that every character can be a good gun hero. So first of all, what makes a good gun hero? Well, obviously they need to have some kind of synergy with their abilities that make their gun really powerful. Haze is kind of the poster child for this. She has her fixation ability, which grants her more weapon damage with each stack of fixation that she applies, and so she ramps up into a gun powerhouse. On top of that, her ultimate does more gun damage and has more fire rate than her base gun. Her smoke bomb allows her to sneak up on enemies and gives her bullet lifesteal with the tier 3, and then her sleep dagger allows her to crowd control the enemies for easy headshots and reduce their bullet resist on wake up. She's a pretty cut and dry case for someone who should basically exclusively be played as a gun hero. Another example of a good gun hero is Bebop because, again, his abilities all synergize with his gun, with the exception of Hyper Beam, which doesn't even allow him to shoot his gun. And so the exploding uppercut here gives him way more weapon damage after hitting a hero. The sticky bomb allows him to have 20% more fire rate with the tier 3, and then the grapple arm gives him 20% more weapon damage against victims for 6 seconds. So you hit everybody with all this, and then the gun just absolutely shreds them. But just because a character has abilities that buff up their gun doesn't mean that they're a good gun hero. Take Lash as an example. His grapple gives him plus 7 weapon damage on his gun for 10 seconds after using it with the tier 2. And, I mean, yeah, it makes his gun stronger. But Gun Lash is still an absolute joke of a build that's not actually taken seriously by anybody. He doesn't feel good to play as a gun hero. And so, why is this? Well, first of all, his gun just isn't super strong compared to other guns. The base stats just aren't particularly great. But I think the bigger issue is that all of his abilities don't really work well when you're building for his gun. His ground strike will do almost no damage if you have a bunch of gun items and no spirit, and the same is true for the Flog. The only useful thing about this is the sliver of healing that you get as well as the debuffs that it applies. His Death Slam, well, I mean, it still works on a gun build, but the follow-up slam just won't hit very hard, and because his gun is single target, you're not going to be able to hit everybody in the group if you hit more than one person with the Death Slam. And even the grapple isn't very good as a gun ability. Sure, it gives you some good traversal, but aiming at people while you're flying through the air is a lot harder than when you're on the ground shooting at them normally, and so everything about his kit just screams that he doesn't really want to play gun, and yet he still for some reason gets a gun buff on the grapple, which is a little strange. However, this doesn't mean that just because someone is an ability-focused character with a lot of mobility, that they can't play a gun build. Pocket is actually quite similar to Lash in the sense that they also have a weapon damage buff on their movement ability, the Flying Cloak. They get 5 weapon damage for 8 seconds. But Pocket's kit just synergizes so much better with a gun playstyle than Lash's, and their gun is also just really good. It has really solid base stats. And so the Flying Cloak obviously is where you get the weapon damage buff, but also you get to shoot normally instead of flying through the sky, and you can still teleport to the cloak when it's over, so it still retains 100% of its functionality. The Barrage will not do much damage with each projectile because you have no spirit scaling, but the damage amp that you get will still buff up your gun and make it stronger. And the satchel also will not be doing much damage, but it will at the very least provide you with a timeout space to block all of the enemy's effects. And the Affliction, well, it won't be doing as much DPS, but it'll still put a lot of pressure on the enemies, and with the tier 3, it'll still completely prevent healing. So, Pocket is able to use their abilities and still retain most of their functionality while playing a gun playstyle, and of course, 2 of their abilities actively make the gun a damage powerhouse. They are by no means the most popular gun character, and Spirit is still the preferred way to play Pocket for most people, but Glocket has carved out a niche as a particularly powerful and fun gun playstyle. But what about someone who's truly inept at using their gun? Let's circle back around to Mo and Krill and talk about why Gun Mo and Krill just flat out doesn't work. So the main reason why Gun Mo and Krill sucks so bad is because their abilities do not synergize with gun in the slightest. The Burrow does not let you use your gun at all for its duration, and it does no damage if you build for gun instead of Spirit. Sure, you could argue it's a traversal and survival tool similar to what Pocket has with their cloak and their briefcase, but I just don't think it's quite the same. And also, the combo is Mo and Krill's ultimate, which is supposed to be a very powerful thing that you want to use to win the game, and it's not going to do any damage if you don't build for Spirit, and once again, you can't use your gun for the entire duration at all. If you build for gun on Mo and Krill, then you are effectively sacrificing almost all of the effectiveness that you would otherwise have on your combo, because, well, instead of getting helpful items like superior duration, warp stone, and more Spirit damage on the combo, you're just getting items that you can't even use during this ability. The one thing that Mo and Krill could actually use to enhance a gun playstyle is the Scorn, which allows him to apply a debuff to the enemies that makes him deal more damage from all sources. But his gun just sucks so bad that it doesn't even really make much sense to do this, because, well, that is the final nail in the coffin for Mo and Krill. The DPS on the gun just kinda sucks. It falls off horrendously at range because, well, he's got a pretty big shotgun spread, and also, I mean, he's just got a lot of fall off in general, and it just doesn't ramp nearly as well as most other guns in the game on actual gun characters. But that begs the question, should Mo and Krill be allowed to play a gun build? Should every character have a baseline level of gun viability that gives them at least one viable playstyle no matter the balance of their other abilities? It's a good question, and there are certainly some pros and cons for whether you think gun should be more versus less viable on a character like Mo and Krill. So first of all, let's discuss the pros. If every character is able to use their gun and build for it effectively to become a damage-dealing machine, then, well, every character will have at least one viable playstyle no matter what in the meta. And this is usually a good thing, right? I mean, we want every character to be playable and to be strong. And also, if a character like Mo and Krill, who currently does not have a viable gun playstyle, suddenly obtains a viable gun playstyle, then that's more playstyle diversity for the character, and generally playstyle diversity is a good thing because it allows for more player expression, and it just makes the game flat out more interesting. Some Spirit characters right now are really one-dimensional. Take Lash, for example. I mean, technically he's got a gun playstyle, but everyone knows it's a bit of a joke. Besides that, you really just see every Lash player picking the same items, just maybe in a different order. You see Tank Buster, Greater Expansion, Superior Cooldown, Stamina Mastery, and basically every single Lash build on the planet. And it's a fun playstyle, but it's very limiting. There aren't a lot of ways for you to change around your playstyle with Lash and make it your own. He has basically no build diversity. And if you want to see what the benefits of good playstyle diversity are, then just have a look at Viscous. This guy has numerous different ways to play him, and you can tell based on the concerns of the deep builds. You've got a Goopin build for the splatter, a punch build, a cube support build, a ball build, and of course a gun build that's not very popular right now because they nerfed Gun Viscous. abilities. And so that's 5 distinct ways to play Viscous, and people absolutely love it. That's one of the big reasons why they gravitate towards Viscous, is because he's such a unique character in that regard. And shoot, that's one of the big reasons why I started even playing Deadlock in the first place, is Viscous and his incredible build diversity. And so I do think having more ways to play every character in the game is a good thing. Now, extra build diversity is all well and good, but I do think that there are some pretty serious cons that hold this idea back from being a good thing that we need to implement in Deadlock. And the first major reason I don't think every character should have a viable gun playstyle is that it would introduce a lot of bloat to certain characters that would just make them too strong. So let's go back to Mo and Krill once again. If they were to make his gun playstyle really good by buffing up his gun to the moon, introducing some gun buffs on his abilities, or doing something radical like reworking combo to allow him to shoot the target that he's got pinned down, then he would just become an insanely overtuned character. Mo and Krill's role in Deadlock right now is to be a very tanky character who goes in and harasses the enemy team's carry, so that way he and his team can win the game. If he were to have a really powerful gun on top of that for the sake of enabling a gun-heavy playstyle, then he would also be capable of doing a ton of damage on top of that, and almost turning into his own team's carry, when that's not really what his abilities were designed for. His character identity just doesn't really support the idea of having a gun playstyle being thrust upon him. And similarly, I also think that if every character in this game had a very strong gun playstyle that was viable no matter what, then characters who are super gun heavy would lose a bit of their identity. One of the big reasons why people play Haze so much is because they like being able to play as a gun specialist who does a ton of weapon damage and is just a really good aimer gamer. If everyone was able to play with a very powerful gun, then Haze becomes kind of boring in the grand scheme of things, because a character like Viscous with a powerful gun just has way more interesting and exciting abilities to use alongside with it. That's not to say that Haze's design is boring right now, quite the contrary, she's a very fun character to play, but it's because she stands in contrast to every other character in the game as one of the only characters who is really gun-oriented and just has a really good gun to use. The last major reason why I don't think guns should be viable on every single character is just because, well, if we were to enter a meta where everyone is going around playing gun builds, then Deadlock would become very boring and stale. Part of what makes Deadlock so much fun is that it's a game with a bunch of really unique abilities that change the game in various ways. Take Dynamo for example, he's got this Stomp, which is a really fun AoE damage tool, the Quantum Entanglement that lets him save him and his team and also pull people through walls, a Healing Aura, and of course, the Singularity. This is just really cool. You can also play this character as a gun hero right now, although it is significantly worse than it used to be because Quantum Entanglement doesn't provide gun buffs anymore. And when you play Dynamo as a gun hero, it just takes a lot of the identity away from the character because all of his abilities are just flat out worse and not as engaging to play with. If you look at all the top Dynamo builds right now, not a single one of them has anything to do with the gun apart from hitting your gun spike. And even then, these gun items are in service of his abilities, and I think that this is a very good thing, even though technically it means that Dynamo himself has less playstyle diversity because gun just isn't really viable on him anymore. And so even though some characters do have more limited playstyle diversity, like Lash, as we mentioned earlier, or Venator, who can really only be played as a gun punch type of character, they still contribute to the overall build diversity of the game as a whole and the variability that you see in any given match. And so if you want a gun experience, then you should go to someone like Haze or Venator. You shouldn't go to Lash and try and conform him to be some kind of gun character when that's really just not what he wants to be. Gun has its place in the game for sure, and some characters should absolutely thrive with gun items, but if we enter a meta where heroes like Kelvin and Viscous are most effective when played around their weapons, I think we're just in a bad meta, and we've experienced all of this before. The game is simply more fun when the characters like these are allowed to play around their abilities instead of their weapons. And so looking towards the future, I think that for the few characters in this game who still have these forced gun playstyles like Lash, where you can get the tier 2 of the grapple and get some more weapon damage for absolutely no reason, they should just rework these buffs into something else that synergizes better with the character's kit. I don't know what that necessarily looks like in Lash's case, but I guarantee you that if they removed this weapon damage clause tomorrow and just left it at 20 meters of cast range, nobody would really notice, and once they finally did notice, nobody would really care, and Lash's viability would not even budge. And in the future, if they have a character like Lash, where none of his abilities actually synergize with a gun, they should not add these strange upgrades, just full stop. And when they create new characters that want to be played around their weapons, those weapons should be unique and interesting. Like Celeste, for example. She's got a very unique primary fire that bounces off the floor. It's a slow projectile, you can shoot it off of walls, and she can kind of be played as an M1 hero if you get certain gun items like Spellslinger, and then you buff up her Light Eater to do a bunch of spirit damage. And so she's kind of a hybrid character, where the actual damage is coming from her gun and her spirit power, but in effect she's still just M1ing. Like Haze, just in a very different form, with different mechanics coming from her mobility and also from the way her gun works. And something that I think they did really well with the last couple of gun heroes they added to the game, being Venator and Silver, is that they encouraged them to scale their weapon damage in different ways. Before they were introduced, the best way to play most gun characters in the game was just to stack a bunch of fire rate. But in Venator's case, he actually really benefits from a lot of weapon damage. And so if you just click on any random Venator build, you're hardly going to see any fire rate at all, because items like Point Blank, Cult to Sacrifice, Hollow Point, and Weighted Shots are all going to make these abilities scale better. And in Silver's case, well, she's, I think, the only character in the game whose primary fire benefits from Express Shot, because it shoots so slowly, but packs such an incredible punch with each shot, and so it's another unique weapon that we haven't really seen in Deadlock before to the same degree. I mean, sure, we have Abrams' shotgun, but nothing fires this slow and quite acts like this specific shotgun. Adding wholly new characters that are designed from the ground up to work with their weapon in a different way to all the other gun characters that we have now would be far better than making it so that existing characters in the game who aren't quite meant to be gun heroes can be played like gun heroes. Even though every hero in the game can technically be played as a gun hero because they all have weapons, it doesn't mean they should be at the end of the day. So, in conclusion, stop sending me trash gun builds on characters that should not play gun on my hero request streams. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for that. Yeah, that is kind of what spawned the idea for this video at the end of the day, was yeah, trying to play gun Lash and making that work, and just experimenting with gun play styles on a whole bunch of different characters over these past couple of days. It has been an interesting experience, and I kind of just wanted to talk about it in a video. So let me know what you think about gun builds in the comments section down below. Do you think it is a good idea to allow most characters in the game to have a viable gun playstyle, or do you agree with my assessment that maybe not every character should be able to have a powerful gun and that it could lead to some problems? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below, and also while you're down there, of course, make sure to like this video if you enjoyed and subscribe for more videos from me. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.